Snow fell in slow, quiet spirals that night, coating the Collins estate in a peaceful white that felt almost cruel compared to the chaos inside my chest. The chandeliers glowed warm and golden, but nothing could thaw the cold spreading through me as Nathan Pierce, my fiancé of 11 months, stood in front of me with a blank expression I had never seen before. "We're done, Aubrey," he said. No tremor in his voice, no sadness, just finality. I laughed, the kind of broken laugh that only comes when the world cracks open beneath your feet. "What do you mean, done? Our wedding is in 6 weeks. You just told me yesterday that you—" He cut me off with a sigh. "This isn't working. It's better this way." Before I could answer, the soft click of heels echoed behind me. Madison Hale, my cousin, the girl who spent half her life envying everything I had, and the other half trying to steal it, stepped into view wearing a white satin dress. Not just any dress, a wedding dress. My wedding dress. The room spun. Madison tilted her head, smiling with that sugary poison she'd perfected since childhood. "Oh, Aubrey, I thought you knew. Nathan and I are getting married instead. Uncle Gregory said it was the smarter arrangement." My father. The walls closed in, my pulse roaring in my ears. What did my father have to do with this? Nathan's eyes darted away. Madison didn't bother lying. "He paid Nathan, sweetheart, a very generous amount, enough to make loyalty flexible." My breath caught. I felt my legs weaken, my heart stumble, my world collapse so violently I had to grip the doorframe to stay upright. The betrayal wasn't just romantic. It was blood deep, family deep, rooted in a cruelty I never imagined my own father capable of. Nathan adjusted his cufflinks like this was a business meeting, not the moment he shattered my life. "It's nothing personal." But it was. It was the most personal thing anyone had ever done to me. Outside, snow kept falling, soft, silent, indifferent, while inside me, something broke so loudly I wondered how no one else heard it. And in that moment, standing barefoot on cold marble, I realized the people who were supposed to love me the most had traded me like a disposable asset. The house was silent the next morning, the kind of heavy silence that presses against your ribs. I woke up feeling hollow, as if someone had scooped out the center of me and left only a shell behind. My father hadn't said a word after witnessing the chaos last night. No comfort, no outrage, nothing. Just that cold, unreadable stare before he walked upstairs. I should have known then. I went to his office only because I needed answers, something, anything to make sense of Nathan's sudden betrayal. The door was wide open, unusual for a man who guarded his privacy like a dragon guards gold. His MacBook sat on the desk, screen glowing, an email draft still open. At first, I wasn't going to look. I believed enough in boundaries, even after everything he'd done. But then I saw Nathan's name in the subject line. My heart stopped. The email wasn't a draft. It was a confirmation receipt, a wire transfer. I stepped closer, fingers trembling as I scrolled. The numbers nearly blinded me. $500,000. Memo. Final payment, engagement termination, and new arrangement. I read it once. Twice. A third time. My stomach turned violently each time. It wasn't just that my father paid Nathan to leave me. It was that he paid him to marry Madison instead, like rearranging pieces on a chessboard. As if I were not his daughter, but a mistake he could correct with money. The worst part came at the bottom of the email. Ensure Aubrey does not access the family accounts or trust. Her emotional instability presents risk. Madison is the suitable heiress. Emotional instability, risk, suitable heiress. Words sharper than any knife. A rustle behind me made me jump. My father stood in the doorway, calm, composed, sipping his morning espresso like we weren't discussing the destruction of my life. "You weren't supposed to see that," he said, not shocked, not apologetic, only mildly inconvenienced. "But maybe it's for the best. You were never built for the future of this family." I felt the floor tilt. "That was my life," I whispered. "You bought it and sold it?" He shrugged, as if I had asked about the weather. "Business, Aubrey. Nothing more." But it wasn't business. It was betrayal. It was abandonment disguised as strategy. And as I walked out of his office, I knew nothing about my old life was salvageable. Something had cracked open, and there was no going back. I don't remember walking down the hallway. I don't remember breathing. All I knew was that something inside me, something fragile but alive, was splintering with every step. My father followed slowly, unbothered, like a man strolling through his garden, rather than a man whose daughter had just watched her world collapse. When we reached the grand staircase, I finally stopped. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from a fury I had never known. "How could you do this to me?" I asked, my voice thin at first, then steadier, sharper. "I'm your daughter, Dad." Gregory Collins set his espresso cup on the railing, as casual as if we were discussing dinner reservations. "You're emotional. You'll see the bigger picture eventually." "The bigger picture?" I choked out. "You paid my fiancé to leave me and marry Madison. You destroyed my engagement, my dignity, my future." "For what?" "For stability," he answered simply. "For the Collins name. For the family you seem determined to run from." I stared at him, stunned. "I wasn't running. I just didn't want the life you forced on me." He sighed, stepping closer. "Aubrey, you were never going to handle the responsibilities this family carries. You're soft, idealistic, sensitive. That's admirable in art, not in legacy." Each word was a blow. "So you replaced me with Madison," I whispered. He didn't deny it. "She's strategic. She listens. She doesn't challenge decisions. She understands the value of alliances. Nathan marrying her strengthens our position." I felt something inside me go still and cold. The realization hit hard. My father didn't just doubt me, he erased me. "And what about me?" I asked. "What am I then?" Gregory looked at me with a chilling calm. "A distraction, one I can no longer afford." My breath caught. For a moment, the world tilted and steadied again. I saw the truth clearly. I had never been a daughter in his eyes, only an investment he considered defective. "Get your things," he added. "It's best if you stay elsewhere for a while. Maddie needs space to prepare for the wedding." It took a second for his words to register. He was kicking me out of my own home. "Fine," I whispered, my voice breaking but proud. "If you want me gone, you'll go. But remember this, when everything falls apart, you won't be able to buy your way out." He didn't answer. He didn't have to. I already knew he believed he could. New York didn't welcome me with open arms. It didn't soften the blow or offer sympathy. It greeted me exactly the way people said it would, with noise, impatience, and a bitter wind that cut straight through my thin coat as I stepped off the bus at Port Authority. I stood there clutching my single suitcase, feeling small in a city too big to notice another broken heart. I found a room on the 6th floor of a narrow brownstone in Brooklyn, a room barely wider than the twin bed shoved against the wall. The radiator clanked all night, the window whistled with drafts, and the hallway smelled faintly of old takeout. But it was mine, and for the first time in days, I could breathe without feeling watched or judged. Still, everything felt heavier at night. I kept replaying my father's words, soft, idealistic, a distraction, like they were tattooed inside my skull. I shouldn't have let them hurt me, but they did. Because a part of me still desperately wanted him to believe in me, to love me, to see me as more than a failed asset. I spent the next week searching for work, walking from hotel to hotel with a resume that suddenly felt too thin. One hiring manager skimmed it for 8 seconds before saying, "We don't have room for beginners." Another suggested volunteer work until I built real skills. One simply said, "We're not hiring," without even looking up from her phone. By day 3, I was eating dollar-slice pizza and pretending it counted as a meal. By day 5, the savings I brought barely covered rent. On day 6, desperation forced me to apply for a temporary position at the Sterling Grand Hotel, a luxury property in Midtown that sparkled with marble floors, towering glass, and staff that moved with the precision of a Broadway cast. I felt out of place the moment I stepped inside, surrounded by polished brass and people who belonged to a world I had been exiled from. But I needed this job. The assistant manager skimmed my resume, eyes narrowing just slightly. You worked at Collins Foundation events? Yes, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Why did you leave? Because I was betrayed. Because my father threw me out. Because my life imploded in a single night. I needed a change, I answered quietly. She paused, then nodded. We'll try you for a week. It wasn't much, but it was a beginning. My first big assignment at the Sterling Grand Hotel was a winter charity gala hosted on the mezzanine ballroom overlooking Fifth Avenue. It was the kind of event dripping with wealth crystal chandeliers, waiters gliding with silver trays, guests wearing tailored suits and gowns that looked like they belonged on magazine covers. I was nobody in this world, just a temporary event assistant in black flats that pinched my toes. Still, I wanted to do well. I needed to do well. But stress makes hands clumsy. I was carrying a tray of champagne flutes when a guest suddenly stopped short in front of me. I tried to pivot, but the tray tilted, the glasses rattled, and a splash of cold champagne spilled onto the arm of a man standing near the balcony. Time froze. The man turned, slow and controlled. His suit was charcoal gray, sharply cut, probably worth more than my monthly rent. His expression was unreadable calm, observant, but not cruel. The kind of man who didn't raise his voice because people listened without being asked. I'm so sorry, I blurted, my cheeks burning. I'll clean that up right away. Please, I didn't mean. He lifted a hand gently, stopping my panic mid-sentence. It's fine, he said, voice low and steady. No harm done. He studied me, not in the way a superior judges an inferior, but as if he were trying to understand the story behind the fear in my eyes. That only made me more flustered. I'll get club soda, I insisted, already stepping back. You're shaking, he observed softly. Take a breath. The kindness in his tone nearly undid me. No one had spoken to me gently in months. It felt dangerously close to compassion, something I didn't know how to accept anymore. I'm really sorry, sir, I repeated. Rowan, he corrected. Rowan Blackwell. The name hit me like a quiet shock. Even I, a girl scraping by in Brooklyn, knew that name. Blackwell Media, one of the biggest private media empires in the country. A man with a reputation for brilliance, mystery, and zero tolerance for incompetence. Yet here he was calming me. Before I could respond, my manager Elena rushed over, eyes blazing. Aubrey, what did you do? Rowan glanced at her, one eyebrow lifting slightly. She's fine. Accidents happen. Elena's face stiffened. Mine flushed with confusion. Why would a man like him defend me? I didn't know the answer yet. But this moment, this tiny accident, was the first shift in the life I didn't know was waiting for me. For a moment after Rowan Blackwell walked away, I felt something unfamiliar relief. Maybe even the smallest flicker of hope. But hope is a dangerous thing when you work under someone like Elna Shah. She waited until Rowan disappeared into the crowd before turning on me, her voice low and poisonous. Do you have any idea who that was? Yes, I whispered. Then you should know you embarrassed this hotel, she hissed, in front of a Blackwell. I didn't. He said it was fine. He was being polite, she snapped. People like him are always polite. But they remember. She leaned closer, her perfume sharp enough to sting my eyes. You better pray he forgets your name. I stood there frozen, my pulse racing. It didn't matter that Rowan had defended me. Elena had already decided I was a problem. And in places like the Sterling Grand, a manager's opinion could end a career faster than any mistake could. For the rest of the event, she sent me on impossible tasks, resetting centerpieces that didn't need fixing, running drinks to tables clear across the ballroom, polishing silver trays already shining. Each command sharper, more spiteful. Each task a reminder of what she really wanted. To break me down until I quit. But quitting wasn't an option, not anymore. By midnight, my feet throbbed, my throat burned, and my hands shook so badly I nearly dropped another glass. I slipped behind a velvet curtain for a breath, just long enough to collect myself. You okay? I almost jumped. It was Leo from catering, one of the only coworkers who didn't treat me like a burden. His eyebrows knit together in concern. "She's riding you hard tonight. She thinks I messed up in front of Rowan," I murmured. "She wants me gone." Leo shook his head. "That's not on you. Elena hates anyone who might outshine her. Especially women." Outshine her? Me? The girl scraping by on a temporary contract, sleeping in a room barely big enough for a dresser? It seemed ridiculous. Still, something in Rowan's eyes, earlier steady, curious, almost gentle, had stirred a part of me I thought was dead. Maybe I wasn't invisible. Maybe Elena saw that. But whatever her reasons, one thing was clear. She wasn't done with me, and the night was far from over. By Monday morning, the hotel ballroom felt like a distant battlefield I had barely survived. My body ached in places I didn't know could hurt, but I forced myself out of bed anyway. Brooklyn sunlight filtered weakly through the blinds, illuminating the peeling paint on my walls. It wasn't much, but at least it was mine. And after the humiliation with Elena, I needed something, anything, to remind me I still had control over my life. At work, Elena didn't acknowledge me. Not a word, not a glance. The silence was worse than her insults, because it meant she was planning something. People like her never stayed quiet unless they were sharpening knives. I buried myself in tasks, inventory lists, vendor emails, repair orders, anything to make myself useful. The more I worked, the more I found myself slipping into a rhythm. A good rhythm, a capable one. For the first time since the disaster with Nathan, I felt competent. Not special, not brilliant, but steady. And after everything I'd lost, steady felt like victory. Late that afternoon, while organizing floral samples in the staff lounge, I heard Leo whisper sharply, "Aubrey, don't move." I froze. A moment later, Rowan Blackwell himself stepped into the doorway. He wasn't supposed to be here. Executives like him didn't wander through staff areas. Yet here he was, hands in the pockets of his tailored coat, eyes scanning the room before settling on me. "Aubrey Collins," he said, as if confirming something to himself. My throat tightened. "Yes, sir? No need for titles." His voice carried a quiet weight. "I wanted to thank you. The event Saturday went smoother than expected." I blinked, stunned. "But I spilled champagne on you." "You handled it professionally," he said. "More professionally than some managers would have." The comment landed like a secret message. Elena, who had been lurking behind a column, stiffened. Rowan wasn't done. "I'm overseeing a winter media summit next month," he continued. "Your eye for detail could be valuable. If you're interested, send your resume to my office." My heart nearly stopped. A door, an actual door, was opening. I'd be honored, I managed. Rowan gave a small nod and left as quietly as he arrived, leaving the room humming with shock. Elena's glare could have cracked stone. For the first time in a long time, I felt something warm flicker inside me. Possibility. Maybe my life wasn't over. Maybe it was just starting. The following week, the Sterling Grand hosted another high-profile event. A private investor dinner, filled with people wearing watches worth more than my rent. I tried to stay invisible, focusing on place cards and table settings, moving quickly so Elena wouldn't find a new excuse to humiliate me. I was adjusting a centerpiece when I felt a sudden stillness in the room, the kind that prickles the back of your neck before your brain understands why. I turned and froze. Nathan Pierce was standing 10 feet away, talking to a group of executives like he belonged there. His suit was expensive, his smile polished, his posture confident. For a split second, I forgot how to breathe. He looked different, sharper, colder, and still painfully familiar. He hadn't seen me yet, so I stepped backward, hoping to slip behind a column, but my heel clicked against the marble floor too, loud. His head turned. His eyes found mine. The smile vanished. "Aubrey?" he said, disbelief cracking his voice. My stomach twisted. I wanted to walk away, but something rooted me in place. Maybe anger. Maybe unresolved pain. Maybe the fact that he looked genuinely shocked to see me. "What are you doing here?" he asked, stepping closer. "I work here," I replied, keeping my tone neutral. He blinked as if the concept didn't fit his worldview. Work here? As what? Before I could answer, Elna materialized beside us like a storm cloud. She's assisting with event coordination, she said, too sweetly. Temporarily. Nathan's jaw tightened. You're working a service job? It wasn't his words, it was the way he said them. Like service meant failure, like physical work made someone lesser. A fresh wave of fury rose in me. Yes, I said simply. I'm doing something honest. You should try it. His face flushed. Aubrey, that's not look. I didn't know you'd end up like this. Like this. Those two words sliced through me, reopening every wound he'd left behind. But before I could respond, a new voice joined us, smooth, steady, unmistakable. She ended up exactly where she needs to be. Rowan stood beside me, hands in his pockets, gaze cool but unyielding as he looked at Nathan. And she's just getting started, he added. Nathan stiffened. Elna's mouth fell open. And for the first time since my life fell apart, I wasn't the one standing alone. The night after seeing Nathan again, I found myself lying awake in my tiny Brooklyn room, staring at the cracked ceiling as the radiator hissed like it was whispering secrets. I kept replaying Rowan's words. She's just getting started. No one had ever said anything like that about me. Not my father, not Nathan, not even Carter, my older brother. The one person I once believed understood me. Until he didn't. He hadn't defended me when Dad forced me out. He hadn't fought for me when Madison took everything. He hadn't called, not once. So when I heard a soft knock on my door around 10 p.m., I wasn't prepared for what waited on the other side. Aubrey, he whispered. I froze. Carter Collins stood in the hallway, still in his tailored coat, hair slightly tousled, eyes exhausted. He looked nothing like the polished air the world saw. He looked human, maybe for the first time. What are you doing here? I asked, unable to hide the tremor in my voice. He swallowed hard. I didn't know where else to go. That made no sense. You're the one who stayed, Carter. You chose them. No, he said quickly, stepping inside before I could refuse him. I chose survival. There's a difference. I didn't answer. The hurt was too deep, too old. He let out a breath. Aubrey, I saw what Dad did. To you, to Nathan, to all of us. My chest tightened. And you said nothing? Because he threatened to ruin me the same way he ruined you, he said. But that's not who I want to be anymore. I looked at him, then really looked. His hands trembled. His voice cracked. And for the first time since everything fell apart, I recognized my brother again. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small black USB drive. My brows furrowed. What's that? Insurance, he whispered. For you. I hesitated before taking it. What's on it? Carter swallowed. Evidence, emails, transfers, recordings. Dad didn't just pay Nathan. He used illegal accounts to do it. If this ever got out, he'd lose everything, I finished. Carter nodded. And you'd finally be free of him. The room went silent. Not the heavy, suffocating silence of my childhood home. This silence felt like a beginning. The next morning at the Sterling Grand felt strangely off, like the air itself was holding its breath. Maybe it was because I barely slept after Carter's visit. Maybe it was because the USB in my pocket felt like a ticking bomb. Or maybe it was because something deep inside me sensed that the universe wasn't done testing me yet. By noon, the hotel buzzed with preparations for a massive corporate galleon that Rowan's company would be attending. I was determined to stay focused, but Elena seemed to have woken up with a fresh appetite for cruelty. Collins! She barked, tossing a clipboard at me. You're behind schedule. I actually finished the vendor check already, I replied calmly. She narrowed her eyes, annoyed I didn't break under pressure. Then you can handle the VIP welcome. Don't mess it up. Her tone made it clear. She wanted me to fail. I headed to the front entrance, smoothing my blazer, steadying my breath. But when the revolving doors spun open, my stomach sank. Madison Hale, my cousin, my replacement, walked in, wearing a shimmering silver gown, arm-linked with Nathan. Of course. because life apparently wasn't done humiliating me. Madison's smile turned razor sharp the moment she saw me. "Aubrey, oh my God! You're working here?" Her voice rang with loud theatrical pity. "I didn't know things got this bad." Nathan shifted uncomfortably, avoiding my eyes. "Good. He should." I forced a professional tone. "Welcome to the Sterling Grand." But Madison wasn't done. She leaned closer, lowering her voice to a poisonous whisper only I could hear. "Dad says you're still unstable." I guess he was right. I felt the words slice into me, but I didn't flinch. Not this time. Before I could respond, Elna suddenly appeared, face tight with manufactured outrage. "Aubrey, step into my office." Now. My heart dropped. Inside, she didn't waste a second. "I received a complaint," she said coldly. "You were inappropriate with VIP guests." "What?" "That's not true. Security confirmed it." Her voice was ice. "You're done here." The world tilted. Just like that, no warning, no discussion, she fired me. I walked out carrying a small box of my belongings, feeling the chill of the winter wind hit my face like a slap. Tears burned behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. For a moment, I stood on the sidewalk, alone again, wondering how much more I was supposed to survive. Then my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Come to the Blackwell Tower. Now. R." My breath caught. Maybe ruin wasn't the end. Maybe it was the door to something else. Blackwell Tower loomed above Manhattan like a monument carved from glass and ambition. I stood in its shadow, gripping my coat tighter, unsure whether I belonged anywhere near something so polished, so powerful. Only last week, I was arranging centerpieces and scrubbing spilled champagne off crystal floors. Now, Rowan Blackwell himself had summoned me. Inside, the lobby glowed with warm gold lighting that made the marble floors shimmer. The receptionist greeted me by name and escorted me to a private elevator. My pulse hammered as the doors slid shut. When I reached the top floor, Rowan was already waiting. No suit jacket this time, sleeves rolled to his forearms, looking more human, yet somehow more intimidating. "Aubrey," he said, voice calm but purposeful. "I heard what happened at the Sterling Grand." Heat rushed to my cheeks. "I didn't do anything wrong." "I know," he replied. "Elna made sure you failed. I don't tolerate environments that crush potential." Potential. A word no one had ever used to describe me. He gestured toward a table overlooking the skyline. On it sat a neatly arranged stack of documents. "A position opened on my events and media coordination team," he said. "Full-time, good salary, benefits, and supervision under people who don't sabotage their staff." I felt dizzy. "Why me?" Rowan studied me for a long moment. "Because you have instincts most people spend years trying to fake, and because you don't give up, even when pushed past the breaking point." The words struck somewhere deep, a place still bruised from years of being dismissed. "I don't know what to say," I whispered. "Say yes." His certainty unnerved me, not because it was arrogant, but because it was sincere. Rowan Blackwell didn't need me, but he wanted me on his team. That meant something big. He slid a sleek folder toward me. "We're preparing a major winter summit. I want you on it. And before you say you're not ready, let me assure you, you are." When I looked down, I saw my reflection faintly in the polished table surface, not the broken girl my father discarded, but a woman standing at the edge of a new life. A woman worth betting on. I signed. Not because I was fearless, but because, for the first time, I wanted to become the version of myself I had never been allowed to be. The first major assignment Rowan gave me was the Winter Media Summit kickoff reception at the Ritz-Carlton. Even walking into the lobby felt surreal, the kind of marble flooring that glowed under soft lighting, the scent of white gardenias drifting through the air, the quiet hum of wealth and power vibrating everywhere. This wasn't the Sterling Grand. This wasn't survival. This was the world I was never allowed to enter. But tonight, I belonged here. Rowan didn't hover. He didn't micromanage. He simply said, "I trust your judgment." and let me work. Those 4 words carried me through the nerves buzzing under my skin. I moved through the ballroom, checking vendor arrivals, adjusting lighting angles, confirming audio cues. It felt natural, effortless even. For the first time, I wasn't just reacting to crises. I was orchestrating an entire event. But every rise attracts a shadow. That shadow appeared in 6-inch designer heels and an expression dripping with venom. "Elena!" I whispered, stunned. She wasn't supposed to be here, yet there she was, dressed like she belonged among CEOs and industry legends. Her smile curled with satisfaction. "Surprised?" she asked, stepping forward. "I have connections too, sweetheart." I straightened. "Why are you here?" "To consult," she said proudly. "The hotel brought me in for high-profile coordination. Looks like we'll be working together, or rather, I'll be watching you try not to embarrass yourself." My chest tightened, but I refused to show fear. "Not now. You can watch all you want," I said evenly. "But I'm not the girl you pushed around anymore." Her eyes narrowed, something sharp flashing behind them. Before she could respond, Rowan appeared beside me. "Aubrey," he said, nodding approvingly. "Lighting looks perfect. Excellent call." Elena froze. Rowan turned to her, polite but distant. "And you are?" Her cheeks flushed, caught off guard. "Elena Shaw. We worked together." Rowan nodded dismissively, already losing interest. "Good. Stay out of her way." The message was clear. My days of being treated like a servant were over. As the ballroom filled with media moguls, executives, and power players from across the country, I felt something shift inside me, not arrogance, not pride, but confidence. A confidence that had been buried so deep I thought it was gone forever. Tonight wasn't just a job. It was proof. I wasn't replaceable. I wasn't weak. I wasn't who my father said I was. I was becoming someone new, and the world was starting to notice. 2 weeks after the Ritz-Carlton summit, Rowan invited me to accompany him to a private investor showcase at a luxury rooftop venue overlooking Central Park. It was the kind of event where fortunes were discussed over champagne and alliances were made with subtle nods. I wore a simple but elegant black satin dress, nothing extravagant, but enough to make me feel like I belonged among the city's elite. I didn't expect Nathan to be there, but when I stepped out onto the terrace, the winter air brushing my skin, I heard his voice before I saw him. Confident, performative, the same tone he used when he wanted the room to adore him. I froze for a second, taking a steadying breath before turning. He stopped mid-sentence when he noticed me. "Aubrey?" His tone wasn't mocking this time, it was stunned, almost breathless. I held my head high. "Nathan!" His eyes swept over me, surprise morphing into something else, regret, maybe even longing. "You look different." "I look like someone you don't get to talk down to anymore," I replied calmly. He winced, but recovered quickly. "I didn't know you were working for Blackwell. That's impressive." "I didn't know you still needed to impress people to feel relevant," I said. Before he could respond, Rowan appeared beside me with 2 glasses of champagne. He handed me one without breaking eye contact, his presence grounding me with quiet strength. "Everything all right?" he asked. Nathan stiffened. "I didn't realize you and Aubrey we work together," Rowan said simply, though his tone carried a protective edge. "And I value what she brings to my team." Nathan's jaw tightened. "You never said you were working closely with him." "You never asked about my life," I countered. "You were too busy building your own." He swallowed, eyes flicking between Rowan and me. "Aubrey, I made a mistake." A bitter laugh almost escaped me. Which one? Leaving me, lying to me, marrying my cousin, or taking a check from my father to do it? His face paled. Rowan's gaze sharpened. "Interesting," he murmured. "Very interesting." Nathan took a step closer, voice desperate. "I didn't love Madison. I thought I was doing what was best for my future." I stepped back, shaking my head. "You did. And losing me was part of that choice." Something inside him broke. I saw it in his eyes. But it was too late. The man who once shattered me was finally feeling the cracks himself. 2 days after the rooftop showcase, the city felt unusually harsh, even the wind was whispering warnings. I hadn't heard from Nathan again, but that wasn't surprising. What was surprising was the message waiting for me when I arrived at Blackwell Tower. Conference room. Urgent. Janelle. HR. My stomach tightened. Urgent messages from HR rarely meant good news. When I stepped into the conference room, Janelle sat stiffly at the table, a thin folder in front of her. Rowan wasn't there. That scared me more than anything. Aubrey, she said carefully. We received a complaint, a serious one. My pulse spiked. From who? She hesitated before sliding the folder toward me. Inside were printed screenshots messages I had supposedly sent. Cruel messages. Manipulative ones. They targeted Nathan, Madison, even Rowan. My hands trembled as I read. Threats, jealousy-fueled rants, accusations, things I would never say. These aren't real, I breathed. I didn't write any of this. The sender's number is registered in your name, Janelle said, and the timestamps match your work hours. No, I whispered, shaking my head. Someone spoofed it. Someone set me up. A cold, familiar voice cut through the air from the doorway. Of course she did. Madison stepped inside like she owned the building coat draped over her shoulders, diamond earrings flashing, a triumphant smile curving her lips. She looked at me the way a predator looks at prey that's finally cornered. Hello, cousin, she purred. Still pretending you're innocent? I stood, fury shaking every muscle. You forged those messages. She shrugged. Maybe, but who's going to believe you? You're the unstable one, remember? Janelle stiffened. Ms. Hale, this is a private HR discussion. Oh, please, Madison scoffed, waving a manicured hand. I'm the one protecting this company from her drama. You should be thanking me. I stared at her, stunned by the depth of her hatred. Why are you doing this? Haven't you taken enough? Her smile widened. You don't get it, do you? You're not allowed in this world. Not mine. Not Nathan's. And definitely not Rowan Blackwell's. She leaned closer. Step out of line again, and I'll make sure you're blacklisted from every company in Manhattan. Something inside me cracked, but not the way it used to. This crack wasn't collapse. It was the sound of something waking up. A refusal. A fight. Madison thought she'd cornered me, but she had no idea what I had in my pocket. A USB, a truth, a weapon, and this war wasn't over. That night, after Madison's ambush in the HR conference room, I walked out of Blackwell Tower feeling like the city itself was closing in on me. Neon lights blurred through the tears I refused to let fall. I'd fought so hard to build something in New York, dignity, purpose, a future, and somehow Madison still found a way to poison it. My chest tightened with the familiar ache of defeat. But the universe wasn't done with me yet. When I reached my apartment building in Brooklyn, a black SUV was parked outside. Its engine idled softly, exhaust fogging in the winter air. I hesitated, and then the back door opened. Carter stepped out. Not the polished, aloof brother molded by our father, but a man whose face held exhaustion, guilt, and determination all tangled together. Aubrey, he said, voice trembling. I had to see you. I crossed my arms, partly from cold, partly from old hurt. If Dad sent you to drag me back, don't bother. He doesn't know I'm here, Carter said quickly, and if he did, he'd try to stop me. My breath hitched. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Snow drifted slowly between us like fragile confetti. You're in trouble, Carter said softly. I heard from someone at Collins Holdings that Dad and Madison are moving fast. They're preparing statements. They want to ruin your credibility before anything gets out. Anything like what? I asked sharply. His jaw tightened. Like the USB I gave you. I looked away. I don't even know if I should use it. Once the truth is out, everything changes. Good, Carter said, surprising me. It should change. He stepped closer. Aubrey, I watched Dad destroy Mom. I watched him destroy you. and I stood by because I was a coward, but I'm done being the son he owns. My throat tightened. Why now? Because, he whispered, eyes glossy, when you walked into that rooftop showcase, holding your head high, I realized you became someone I wish I had the courage to be. I swallowed hard. He wasn't done. And because Dad and Madison aren't just planning to smear you, they're planning to make sure Rowan cuts ties with you before he finds out the truth about them. A chill shot down my spine. Rowan! I breathed. Why would they? Because Dad knows Rowan is dangerous to him. And because Madison knows Rowan might be important to you. My heart slammed against my ribs. Carter looked me dead in the eyes. Aubrey, you need to use the USB. Expose them. All of them. At the wedding. The wedding. My brother's wedding. The perfect battlefield. I sat on the edge of my bed long after Carter left, the city humming outside my window like a restless beast. The USB lay in my palm, small, cold, deceptively harmless. Yet it held the power to blow my father's empire apart, to expose Nathan, to end Madison's carefully crafted fayade, and maybe to free me forever. My hands trembled as I plugged it into my laptop. A folder opened. At first, it looked simple. Financial statements, wire transfers, encrypted messages. But the deeper I clicked, the darker it became. Emails between my father and Nathan negotiating my breakup like a corporate merger. Messages from Madison bragging about how she would take everything Aubrey ever wanted. Bank transfers from offshore accounts my father denied even existed. A contract showing Nathan received payments not just to leave me, but to publicly undermine my character if necessary. My stomach churned. Then I found the video. It was a recording grainy, taken from a security camera in my father's private office. I clicked play. Nathan sat across from my father, eyes hollow. "She's good, Greg," Nathan said. "She doesn't deserve this." My father's reply was ice. Deserve? This isn't about deserving. It's about positioning, about optics, about alliances. Aubrey is fragile. She complicates things. I don't want to hurt her, Nathan whispered. You already did, my father said. And if you want your future, you'll keep doing what I tell you. I covered my mouth to keep from crying out. Hearing it was worse than imagining it. My father's voice, the same voice that once read me bedtime stories, sounded like a stranger's. The video wasn't over. Madison entered the office, laughing as she draped herself onto the arm of Nathan's chair. Come on, Nate. Don't get sentimental. You know she'd never survive in this family. Nathan looked sick. My father added, and when we're done, no one in this city will take her seriously again. The recording ended. I stared at the blank screen, numb. This was worse than betrayal. It was annihilation planned, executed, deliberate. Tears blurred my vision as I whispered into the quiet room. Why wasn't I enough for any of you? A single notification buzzed on my phone. From Rowan. Are you all right? I heard something happen today. Call me if you need anything. My breath hitched. For the first time in years, someone cared without wanting something from me. I looked at the USB again, my weapon, my truth, my last resort. And Carter's words echoed in my mind. At the wedding. That's where you end this. I closed my laptop. War had begun. The morning of Carter's wedding broke cold and sharp, the kind of winter day where the sky looked polished and merciless. I stood in front of the mirror in my small Brooklyn apartment, smoothing the champagne-colored satin dress I had borrowed from a coworker. It wasn't extravagant, but it made me feel steady, strong even. Today wasn't just a wedding. It was a battlefield. Rowan had offered to send a car, but I declined. I needed to walk into that event on my own terms, even if my hands trembled with every step I took toward the unknown. The USB sat in my clutch, like a beating heart, heavy with truth. The ceremony was being held at the River Cafe, one of the most beautiful wedding venues overlooking the Brooklyn Bridge. Warm lights twinkled against the icy river, and guests in designer coats gathered in elegant clusters. Everything looked perfect. Perfect things always hide fractures. When I walked in, heads turned. Not because of my dress, but because I wasn't supposed to exist in this world anymore. Not as anything more than a rumor my father dismissed as unstable. Carter saw me first. Relief washed over his face as he crossed the room and pulled me into a tight embrace. "You came," he whispered. "I said I would," I replied, trying to steady my breath. Before we could say more, the temperature in the room shifted. My father arrived. Gregory Collins stood tall in a custom black coat, expression carved from stone. Madison trailed behind him like a queen entering court, draped in a silver gown that sparkled too brightly. Nathan followed, expression uncertain, eyes darting the moment he noticed me. Madison's smirk spread slowly. "Aubrey, wow, I didn't expect this," my father added, voice low but cutting. "You should have stayed away. Today is not about you." Something inside me stopped trembling. "No," I said quietly. "Today is about truth. And it's time everyone heard it." Madison's smirk faltered. Nathan swallowed hard. My father's eyes narrowed. Before any of them could respond, Rowan stepped into view. Elegant in a tailored navy suit, gaze steady, presence commanding. He walked straight to me, offering his arm without hesitation. "Aubrey," he said softly, "you don't have to face them alone." The entire room fell silent. My father's jaw tightened. Madison paled. Nathan looked like he'd been punched. In that moment, before a single secret was revealed, the balance of power shifted, and everyone felt it. The reception hall glittered beneath strings of warm lights, but the air felt electric, charged with something brittle and dangerous. Guests moved about with champagne flutes and polite laughter, unaware the night was about to split open. Rowan stayed close beside me, his steady presence giving me the courage I hadn't known I would need this badly. Carter, now in his wedding suit, took a deep breath and squeezed my hand. "When you're ready," he whispered, "I'll stand with you." For the first time, I believed him. The band softened into a slow melody as the wedding coordinator invited guests to find their seats. My father took his place at the family table, Madison glowing smugly beside him, Nathan hovering like a shadow with nowhere else to hide. I stepped toward the center of the room. Madison's voice cut through the music. "Aubrey, what are you doing? This isn't your moment." "Not yet," I said quietly, "but it's yours." She blinked, confused. Rowan nodded to the AV technician, a subtle gesture, one he'd arranged earlier when Carter warned him of what might unfold. The lights dimmed. The projector screen lowered behind the head table. A low murmur rippled through the room. My father straightened, suspicion flickering in his eyes. "What is this?" I walked onto the small stage, my hands steady despite the storm inside me. "Tonight," I began, "we celebrate my brother's new beginning. And to honor that, I think it's only fair that we stop carrying the weight of old lies." Madison shot to her feet. "Stop this, Aubrey." But it was too late. The screen lit up. The first email appeared, my father wiring Nathan the initial payment. Gasps rippled across the guests. Then the message from Madison. "Make sure she looks unhinged. I want her out for good." Whispers exploded. My father lunged to his feet. "Turn that off. This is private family business." "It stopped being private the moment you used me as currency," I said. Then the video played. My father's voice filled the room like poison. "Aubrey is fragile. She complicates things. When we're done, no one in this city will take her seriously again." The room went dead still. Nathan sank into his chair, face white. Madison trembled, mascara smudging as she whispered, "Greg, do something." But he couldn't. Gregory Collins, the man who lived his entire life controlling every narrative, was exposed under chandeliers and wedding flowers, stripped of every lie he'd ever wrapped himself in. Carter stepped onto the stage beside me. Rowan stepped closer, a silent shield at my back, and for the first time in my life, my father had no power left. The moment the video ended, the wedding hall dissolved into chaos. Conversations crashed into one another, gasps fractured the air, guests stood in disbelief, and the soft golden glow of the chandeliers suddenly felt harsh, like spotlights exposing every sin my family tried to bury. My father attempted to steady himself, but his composure, his signature armor was gone. For the first time in my life, Gregory Collins looked small. Human, breakable. "Everyone stay seated," he barked, voice cracking. "This is a fabrication, a setup." But no one listened. A board member from Collins Holdings stepped forward. "Greg, those were real accounts, offshore transfers. You told us they didn't exist." His face drained of color. Madison stumbled backward, clutching her chair for support as whispers rose around her like smoke. Did she really frame her own cousin? She paid him? That's disgusting. I knew something was off about her. She shook her head wildly. No, this is being twisted. I didn't mean Nathan. Say something." Nathan looked shattered. His once perfect posture wilted. His gaze darted helplessly between Madison and my father before landing on me. "Aubrey," he breathed. "I'm sorry. I didn't know it would go this far." "Stop." My voice was calm, cold. "You made your choices." His shoulders slumped, the truth crushing him harder than any accusation could. But the collapse was just beginning. A stern man in a dark suit, someone I recognized from financial ethics investigations, approached my father. "Mr. Collins, we've been reviewing irregularities in your accounts for months. This evidence confirms everything. We'll need you to come with us." My father stiffened, outrage igniting in his eyes. "You can't arrest me at my son's wedding." "This isn't an arrest," the man replied. "Yet, but you are officially suspended pending federal review." Gasps rang out. Madison burst out crying, mascara streaking down her cheeks. "This isn't happening. Greg, fix it." He didn't even look at her. Nathan sank into a chair, burying his face in his hands. Carter stepped beside me, voice steady. "You did the right thing." Rowan placed a reassuring hand at the small of my back, grounding me as the storm raged around us. For years, they orchestrated my downfall. Tonight, they orchestrated their own, and not a single person in the room came to save them. The wedding hall slowly quieted after the chaos, like a storm finally losing strength. Guests whispered in shocked clusters, avoiding my father, who now sat rigid and silent, stripped of the power he'd always carried like a second skin. Madison sobbed in the corner, her silver gown wrinkled, her crown of entitlement slipping for the first time. Nathan seemed hollow, as if he finally understood the weight of a future built on betrayal. And me? For the first time in years, I felt light. Carter stepped toward the microphone on stage. His bride stood beside him, squeezing his hand. "Before we continue," he said, voice steady, "I want to thank my sister, not for exposing anyone, but for surviving what no one should have had to survive alone." My throat tightened. Applause rose, not hesitant, not forced, but warm. Genuine. I wasn't a scandal. I wasn't a broken engagement. I wasn't a discarded daughter. I was a survivor, a woman rising. When Carter returned to me, he pulled me into a tight embrace. "This family needed truth," he whispered, "and you gave it to us." The ceremony resumed, gentler now, full of real joy instead of curated perfection. As the night softened, Rowan found me standing on the terrace, overlooking the river. City lights shimmered across the water like scattered diamonds. "You handled tonight with more grace than most CEOs I know," he said quietly. I let out a shaky laugh. Grace wasn't exactly what I felt. "Maybe not," he said, stepping closer, "but strength was." His eyes held mine, patient, unwavering. "And I think you're finally beginning to see what I've seen in you from the start." My breath caught. What's that? A woman who knows her worth, and who deserves a life built on respect, not control. For once, I didn't look away. He reached into his coat, pulling out a velvet box. Not flashy, not oversized, just elegant. My heart stumbled. "Aubrey Collins," he said softly, "I don't want to save you. You never needed saving. I want to build something with you, equal, honest, real. Will you let me?" Tears warmed my cold cheeks, but they were different this time. Not grief, not fear. Release. Yes, I whispered. I will. He slipped the ring onto my finger, simple but breathtaking, like the future finally opening its arms to me. Behind us, the city glowed. Below us, the river carried away everything that had ever tried to drown me. I wasn't the discarded daughter anymore. I was the woman who rose and chose her own life. So that's where our story comes to an end. And if you are still here, listening all the way to this moment, then something in Aubrey's journey must have touched your heart in a real, honest way. Maybe you've been underestimated before. Maybe you've been betrayed by someone you trusted. Or maybe you just needed a reminder that no matter how hard life hits, you still have the strength to rise back up. There's a line from Marcus Aurelius that fits perfectly here. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Aubrey couldn't control her father, Nathan, or Madison, but she could control her courage, her choices, and the way she rebuilt her life. That's where her power lived. And guess what? That same power lives in you too. You're not defined by the people who left you, the ones who doubted you, or the doors that closed on you. You're defined by the moment you decide, I deserve better, and take the first step forward. Even if your voice shakes, even if your heart is still healing. So if you felt something tonight, even a small spark, do me a favor. Hit the like button, share this story with someone who might need it, and subscribe so you don't miss the next journey we take together. You're not alone, my friend. And your story, it's still being written.